We welcome you to the Legal Clinic program brought to us by Say What in membership, in support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. Say What is a membership-based public health social movement organization founded in 2003 with the express ambition to contribute to the existence of a generation of healthy young people in Zimbabwe and the SADC region. And joining us for our conversation today, would want to say good morning to Victor Chirimuta, a lawyer. Hey Victor, good morning.
Hey Vikendi, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I am well, thank you.
And also joining us today is Hazel Giorgio, an MSU student. Hey Hazel, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Fantastic, I'm good, thank you. Today we're talking about conflict between the child's right to the highest attainable standard of health and religion in Zimbabwe. That's an actual conflict, hey Victor?
It is. I mean, we've seen in recent times, maybe like the third time now within the past year, that a child in Zimbabwe has died at a religious shrine, in childbirth. And that really begs the question, like, what really is going on here? Because on one end, the Constitution guarantees every child the right to the highest attainable standard of health, which means that under all circumstances, a child should get, qualified medical personnel and also, competent medical services. And then on the other hand, we have people within, certain religious circles who decide, I know not I was going to hospital. My child has to actually go to this shrine. And come on, we can't have 3 young girls dying within a space of 12 months, and these are the only reported cases that we know.
Yes. And how about the ones that are not reported?
Exactly. And they were all pregnant, and they all died in childbirth, and they all died at a religious shrine. You can't have a place of religious worship also becoming the place of death for young women. Like, I mean, surely there's a conflict somewhere. And these are girls, we won't even delve into the issue of age of consent and how they were young and they were probably raped by some older men somewhere. We won't go into that. We're just looking into, but why are we continuing having these deaths happening at the same place?
You can also come through on our WhatsApp platform. We are live on Star FM and on the Star FM Facebook page. We're also live on the Say What Facebook page. Can you give us, Victor, a legal definition of the highest attainable standard of health?
All right, so this is for me like my favorite human right, because I think of all the rest we've been discussing on this show, this is the one that actually speaks to itself. It means that under all circumstances, right, given all things being equal, a child should get, the best that they can get in terms of health services. So this means that they should walk into a clinic, a hospital, where there is competent and qualified medical personnel, so we want people who are qualified. In this case, concerning a childbirth, there should have been a qualified medical personnel, to administer, right? And then beyond that, it has to be done in a way that is also friendly to the child. There has to be all manner of freedom from torture, from victimization, from harm when a child is attending medical services. That is a basic human right. It is a right guaranteed by the Constitution, by all these other international instruments that Zimbabwe has signed to. So I don't understand why we sign things that we don't want to implement as a country.
So it is a basic human right. But then, Victor, can this right be limited in any way?
It shouldn't be. I mean, the right to the highest attainable standard of health is directly linked to the right of life. And the right to life is a fundamental human right. I mean, there should not be any circumstances under which a human being can curtail or stop the life of another person. It's a supreme right, directly linked. So I say any right, let's say, to tertiary education. Somebody you can argue to say, but one way to, at least what grade 1 to 7, tertiary education is not really that important. You could argue that, but the right to health linked to life, to the right to life, it should be a supreme human right, and we should treat it as such, in my opinion.
What about in the instances of religion where one is exercising, or they argue that they are exercising their right to conscience? How does that conflict? And how do we bridge the gap there?
So one's right to conscience must never infringe on another person's right to life. That's why I said that the right to life, the right to a sustainable standard of health is a supreme human right. Your right to conscience, it's up to you. You can exercise that right. It's within the constitution. It's within the ambit of what you can do as a Zimbabwean. But it should never infringe on someone else's right to life or someone else's human rights in any way, so to speak. So this instance where people go on to say, but chitendero chedu, vana vedu hava vaccinatory, vana vedu havaendi kuhospital, mwana wedu akadai so tinopa mushonga yakaita so, and at the end of the day you are abusing those children, and I'm happy to say that. I wanted to say I'm sorry to say that, but I'm really happy to point that out, to say it is child abuse. When you deny a child the service that they should get in order for them to have a life, to have better quality of life in the name of religion, then what you're doing is simply violating the child.
And we've had cases that you mentioned at the beginning of the program, Anna Machaya, and there's also Nokutenda Waramba, there is Febi Munyafi, all those really heartbreaking, cases of young girls who were victims. What does this mean for our young girls?
I like to describe it as a perpetual cycle of human rights violations, where you look at these young girls. While they lived, they lived in the shadow of their abusers. Some men somewhere that is not mentioned got these young girls pregnant in the first place. And then from then, they were shadowed, in the memory of these men. From then, they're taken to a place, a shrine, where they die, and even in their death, there's no justice. So, it's like we don't take children's rights seriously. We don't take girls' rights seriously. While they are alive, we don't do anything. When they die, we still don't do anything. It's like a perpetual silencing of young girls. And that is such a tragedy for this country.
It is. And maybe to bring it home, let's say, for instance, Inino and my neighbor has married an underage girl. How do I report? And do not report kunani without involving myself as the complainant, because yeah.
I mean, it's important for one to report. And in these instances, you should report. And there are various mechanisms. I mean, you can approach the VFU, Victim Friendly Unit of the ZRP. You could really make an anonymous report, But there are also organizations that could help you with making that report. For example, we have the call center at say what 577. You dial in, you call, and then from there you're able to get professional assistance on how to make this report while you remain anonymous. So it's very possible, you don't always have to have a face, because sometimes all you need is just to get people to investigate, and once an investigation is done, the person is arrested.
And we also have Hazel Jojo in the studio. Would also want to hear your thoughts on this subject. Hazel, talk to us as a young person, and from your experiences, what you have heard from your interactions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. For me, this is a very sad topic for me. It's very close to my heart, and it's very emotional when we see our young girls, dying. And I don't understand, Candy, how did we get to that point as a nation? How did we get to a point where a 15-year-old dies on a shrine, and months later, the country moves on as if nothing has happened? To me, it's actually a reflection of a broken system. How do we then get to recommit ourselves to the protection of the girl child? We live in a country where there is the Children's Act, where it's the Constitution, where Zimbabwe itself is a signatory to the Convention of the Children's Rights. But we still have these cases consistently, and they are happening in a short space of time. And to me, every time I see my little sister going to school, she's 10, I'm scared already. I can't even spend the whole day without thinking about her, because the world is now crazy, and there are vultures out there who are seeing her as a wife and not as a child. So for me, I just don't understand how you are a faith leader, or how you are, a custodian of God's word, and you still take away the dreams that young people or that young women are entitled to. For me, I just don't understand, Candy, and it's so emotional to me. If you look at Febi's issue, she died bleeding, at the presence of a faith leader. How are you a man of God, and you still get to watch a 15-year-old bleeding to death in the name of God? To me, I just don't understand how we preach that love your neighbor as you love yourself. But you are in your church, authorizing a relationship or a marriage between a 30-year-old man and a 15-year-old child. To me, I just don't understand how we got to that level of selfishness as the humankind.
It's such an emotional subject, hey, and thank you, Hazel, for highlighting that it's an issue of serious concern, and which we just cannot sit around. If you're just tuning in, it is the legal clinic brought to us by Say What, and we're talking about the conflict between the child's right to the highest attainable standard of health and religion in Zimbabwe, and why is there like a bit of reluctancy to enforce the issues of underage marriages, especially amongst mainly the apostolic sects? Talk to me, Victor.
I think, I mean, we recently saw the enactment of the Marriages Act. It was good. I think Section 3 outrightly prohibits child marriage, which is a good thing. We commend that. But I think the problem with Zimbabwe, and it's not only Zimbabwe, it's an African problem. We have all these beautiful laws and policies. What we lack in is implementation. That's where the problem is. We just lack the political will to implement some of these issues. And that manifests in how, we have a law. People went around the country consulting, on the drafting of this law, spent so much money in drafting that. And up to now, there's not even been one arrest that has come to to the courts based on a child marriage. But these things are happening every day. If you can, in our communities, it happens every day. All of them from 3 and it's so normal. Like, we even go to the as far as blaming the child anyway for being married or for being a victim. Yeah, but you think about it instead, but we have the law. I don't know why it's just not being implemented. It baffles me, because then it throws away all the efforts that we've made in fighting for the rights of children, especially girls. You are there, you are fighting for the enactment of a law, but then no one implements it.
We'd also want to hear from you. You can send us a message, 0775-897-897. We're also live on Facebook, by the way. Would want to hear your thoughts. You can weigh in on this subject. But then, how practical would it be to empower Masabuku, my community, or my chiefs, to arrest and to take to the police anyone involved in such? Like, what's on the ground? What are your thoughts on that?
It's important. I think at the end of the day, these are the gatekeepers to any community. These things happen a lot in rural communities anyway. And I know that there's been a bit of work in the around that, empowering chiefs and empowering Masabuku with bylaws on abolishing child marriages. Because sometimes what you just need to do is kutanga ne community nedunu renye mimi ngoti susu mudunu muno mtaramba kuti wana varodzwe, and these things cascade to other communities. But it just starts with us just say, okay, Sabuka watawapa masimba, at least then he can either break the marriage or from then be placed in a position where he can rightfully go on to report. Then that way we start from very small levels, but these things cascade to other parts of the country as well.
It's Star FM sounding good all the time. It is the legal clinic, and you can weigh in, you can talk to us, you can also call us live if you want to contribute to this discussion. We're talking about the conflict between the child's right to the highest attainable standard of health and religion in Zimbabwe. Case in point, Yano Kutenda Waramba, Anna Machaya, and Febi Munyafi. These are actual cases that are happening right before our eyes. And what would you say, Kunemuno at Torom community, Momo, Victor, and they're seeing what's happening? What can you say? What stance should they take?
All right, so I always say, only the fight against impunity can break the spiral of violence. So at the end of the day, tikanyarara, these things thrive mkunyarara kwedu. Kana straight kanyarara, it means you're supporting. Anyway, long story short, that's what it means. You're in support of that. I want to commend the, if you saw the video, Yakabuda around the ladies, the women in Nokutenda Waramba's community, how they were really, speaking up about this abuse. Maybe too little, too late, but at least they did something. They spoke. They spoke up about it, and condemned it, And that's what we need to get to as a community. I cannot keep quiet, in our own way, everyone should be their brother and sister's keeper. I think we should all be children's keepers anyway, because ukakaona kacho, they're not in a position for themselves to report. But this is then we should be able to speak up to say, ichaitika ichakashata, and let's protect the rights of children.
And they should be arrested both. Vaninge vaita musha vese nema parents achona to set an example. Yeah.
I agree. I really think at the end of the day, the faith healer, the priest, whoever is at the shrine, at the moment of death, they should be the legal cause.
Yeah.
In this case where Phoebe, when she died, she was bleeding.
Exactly.
At some point, you should have seen, is this now beyond me?
Exactly.
Mwananga in the hospital. But it continued, And in other books, that should be called murder. But Isuseni was a faith healer, and there's all this notion of touch not the anointed. So I really won't go into that. But at the end of the day, these are people who are committing murders, and for lack of
in the name of religion.
In the name of religion, and we are watching it happen day in and day out.
Hazel, you can come in.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say that I think we need to start and sell the dream here, because last time I traveled to another rural area, and I was told that when girls are raped in this rural area, we just sit down and we talk, and there's some compensation in form of a goat and a cow, and the parents will start then negotiating and see what is better, to pursue the case and to the courts, and sometimes we've lost faith in the courts, or to just get our little cow that can aid to our wealth. So for me, I think we need to sell the dream and tell these communities what happens when a child is married at the age of 10 or at the age of 12. What happens to your education life? What happens to your sexual life? She's likely to drop out of school. She's likely not to have any livelihood of some sort. She is likely not to have a future in her name. She's likely not to contribute to the economy. And do you want that as a community? Do you want your children to not have a name, to not have economic assets, to not go to school and get degrees? Do you want that for your children? I think it's now high time we have these discussions, and bring out this naked truth. Because, we just got there and say stop child marriages. They'll tell you that, I'm marrying off my daughter to a rich man and he's taking care of our welfare as a country or as a community, which brings in the structural causes of poverty here. So I think let's sell the dream. What is the importance of, raising a child so that she goes to school, so that she gets a job and take care of herself, other than just marrying her off at 14? I think let's sell the dream and start thinking and start talking about recommitting ourselves and re-strategizing to the protection of children in our country.
So true. Totally agree. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Thank you so much, Hazel, for highlighting that and getting into it. Victor, your parting words for this particular show?
Let's act. I've seen a lot of sentiment of solidarity from civil society organizations, you name them, even people on social media. But for me, solidarity without action is hypocrisy. We need to stop being hypocritical and start acting on these issues for what they really are.
Thank you so much. We continue next week. It is the legal clinic brought to us by Say What, with support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. And we're talking about conflict between the child's right to the highest attainable standard of health and religion in Zimbabwe, with Victor Chirimota, a lawyer, and Hazel Jojo, an MSU student. Thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you for having us, Vikendi.
Vikendi on the Morning Galaxy, right here on Star FM.